And I was worried we were going to get mostly through the book of John, and we just got it to 2 references. All right. Honor and shame. I didn't say, see, the Afterburn's really cool because I could say things I forgot to say during the teaching. So this is the Afterburn. Part of honor and shame is going to be an incredibly heightened awareness situationally. Okay? Because how else will you know if there's somebody else in the room that you should be deferring to? How else would you know that the situation requires a certain behavior or not, if you're not aware? We walk through life oblivious most of the time. We kind of plow through life, just bumping into everything. And we're not really aware. And I think we're going to have to just incredibly ramp up our level of awareness. Okay? Okay, so like for example, the person that sends me the email, which I get, so if any of you think this, I'm talking about you, I didn't get one recently, but I get them all the time saying, well, I just wanted to know that I think you're right about most of the things you teach. Is that a very honoring thing to say? Now you can feel that and say something like, I really appreciate your teachings. At least some of them anyway. Or you could say, or just say nothing at all that way, but you know, what you're basically saying is, I don't agree with that. You know, you think you're telling me something nice. I agree. By the way, I think you're right on most things. I feel so good about that. Because now what am I doing? I'm only thinking about the ones that you might not agree with, and what are they, and why don't you agree, and where is the problem, and right? You've now given me a thought that takes me away from any kind of a thank you. Because now you want me to focus on there obviously is stuff you don't agree, what is that? You're forcing me to ask the question. Well, what is it we don't agree on? Okay? So just that situational awareness. You know, if you're on live stream right now, some of you are having to learn how to not act shameful and submit to the authority of Rob and Kurt and recognize that you're in a congregational meeting and it's not a place for you to be throwing out your agendas and your authority. And I don't know who's doing it. By the way, some people on live stream think I can see the chat. I can't see the chat. Okay? All right? All I have in front of me is a timer, so I can see that. But we have this every week. People are not respectful and are not honoring where they are. And there's a right and appropriate way to behave in all situations, but you have to have an awareness enough to ask the question in your brain, what is the appropriate way to behave at this moment in this situation? Is this the right time and the right place for this? Right? And probably if you ask that question in the beginning, the answers are going to be often, no, it's not. Later on, it'll be more yes, because you'll actually only be asking the questions about the things that you still haven't figured out whether or not they're appropriate. The ones that you figured out, you won't even be thinking about it. You'll already know. So in the beginning, you're going to ask that question of yourself, is this the right time for this? And you probably get the answer no a lot. Later on, you'll already know it's not appropriate, so those won't be the questions anymore. Only when you're in a situation where you're really not sure, you're still going to ask. Make sense? All right, Afterburn, if you have questions or comments, raise your hand. Steve will come around on live stream. Rob's got the live stream desk. We'll begin with Steve.
Okay, I'm glad you're going to pin this down, because if you don't pay attention, it seems like they're going through society is going back and changing what is honorable and what is shameful. Some guy might have done something 30, 40 years ago. Today, they've decided that's now not honorable, but back then, it was laughed at, cajoled, and it was okay. So I'm glad that this is going to be pinned down, because who knows what I say today is going to be
Amen.
Good or not.
Amen. Awareness is step one with all things. You have to become aware. And otherwise you can't succeed in doing anything unless you have an awareness of what is necessary to succeed in whatever you're doing. You have to have an awareness. It's very, very important. So thank you for the comment. There's something else I was going to say, but I lost it already. So go ahead and pass the mic. Oh, I was going to say this. When you talk to people about the teachings, Marty is starting to do more and more of making sure that the afterburns get done, so that they're ready for the same time as teachings and stuff. So, tell people they need to listen to the afterburn as well, not just the teaching, because a lot of times what they need to understand the teaching is what gets clarified in the afterburn, okay? So always recommend that to them. Okay, Tricia.
Thank you. This week was a very intense week, and it was all about honor and shame this week. And if I may speak, I have a few words I'd like to say to you. I want to start out by saying how much I appreciate you. When I came to you 6.5 years ago, I was a very sick, lost little girl and was terrified of literally everything. I no longer had the powers of the past, and I was stepping into a new reality, and it was very confusing and strange. However, I was trusting in the order in which Yah had created. You guided me through a divorce, through deep psychological and emotional stuff. And although I went through many physical pains and traumas from my childhood and adult life, nothing could prepare me for the world of reality coming into Torah. You have been trustworthy and faithful every time I need you. I have come to feel safe with my choice to have you as my covering. You are held in great value to me, and I want to honor and esteem you. The reason why I speak is because Wednesday, after reviewing the Torah study, I noticed I made a mistake, and it made me feel very shameful. I am openly apologizing for not showing you proper respect and order and honor. I am very sorry, and I want nothing to be a stumbling block between you and I. You are the vessel that Yahweh works through, and I want to guard that as like guarding the Torah to me. And I ask you for forgiveness, for you are valuable to me, and I want to show you the proper respect and honor for your authority. 6.5 years ago, I took off my tzitzis. You had shared with me how women are to receive from man. For 6.5 years, under your covering, I have received from you, and I feel covered, safe, and loved.
Oh, I appreciate that so much, and absolutely you are forgiven, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate those words, and see, that then gives me the opportunity to say, I want to give praise, glory, and honor to the Father for allowing me to have that opportunity. See, that's how it can work. It goes to me, and then I can, see, don't redirect and don't accept. That's part of the things that people tend to do. Oh, no, don't give me anything. No, I received that I did those things that you're blessed by. But I want to now redirect and say, but I was able to do that because he allowed me the position and opportunity to be there for you. So all glory and honor now goes and gets redirected, okay? Amen. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much, okay? Some of us, I know, we're very much want to make sure that we're not receiving honor and glory that shouldn't be ours. If somebody's giving you really strong appreciation and praise, receive that. You're supposed to. That comes upward, and then you can continue to send it further. But receive it first, because you did do the stuff. But you only did the stuff because he gave you the talents and gifts and the heart to do it and put you in that place. If I wasn't here, she couldn't have had that experience. But I wouldn't be here if he didn't put me here so she could have that experience. So we continue the flow. Amen? Amen. Okay. Thank you very much, Tricia. I appreciate that, and you are forgiven. Okay. The mic's coming around to Dale.
Yeah, you brought up in John where Yochanan said that he must decrease so that Yeshua can increase. And I thought it was neat how you connected that with the honor and shame. But I couldn't help but think of how he might have also been referencing like the priesthood, how he's going to decrease that one so Yeshua can maybe increase the other.
Well, I mean, it's a multiple, facets. I mean, there's multiple facets to literally increase in terms of his following, increase in terms of a lot of things, but it really had to do with saying, look, my position was the highest position in Israel at the time. That's what John is saying. I had the highest position. I was the prophet. I was the high priest, legitimately, I believe anyway. But I am now recognizing my superior who is now here. Okay? And you guys need to understand that. He's what he's telling to those who are following him. I was in your whole life that person, but now a greater has shown up. And this is important that we can see that, okay? All right. Where's the mic? Okay, Michael? Michael, I know you were in Puerto Rico before you came here, but it's not winter yet. The air conditioning is a little high maybe, but...
A little bit. So
what are you going to do in December? Actually, it doesn't get cold here until about February, March, but what are you going to do?
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet, okay. We'll get you a second jacket.
One that
Okay.
fits me.
One that fits you, there you go.
So when you brought up this, the question about how the Seventh-day Adventists call the wine grape juice
Well, they call it spoiled
or
grapes.
spoiled grapes,
Yeah.
the whole concept of the honor and shame, and then putting that into context, is not twisting the word shameful.
What do you mean?
Like it's a twisting of what it actually says.
Well, yeah, twisting it can be shameful, but look, let's deal with, again, the authority thing. If you go to Deuteronomy 17, it's arrogance not to honor the authority that you went to get counsel from. It's arrogance, and it's shameful when you get instruction and you don't do what they say. So if I'm leading a group, you don't have to be part of it, by the way. But if you are, then it's not honoring if you are not going to respect the positions and the decisions of the leader of the group. Okay? And that's obviously a challenge at times. Well, in the beginning, you're not going to know whether or not you're in line with the leader. It's going to take you a while to figure that out and find out what they believe, especially if you just happen to be brand new and walked into the place and don't even know what the person's positions are. But as you do get to that place, you have to recognize you're not in a position to argue. I've had to tell people that many, many times at the places they were attending. And I said, you need to stop arguing with the leadership there. You don't agree with them, either be at peace and respect their authority or leave. I said, don't fight with them, but they're wrong about this and they're wrong about that. Well, maybe they are, and if they are, it's still not your job to argue with them. You're failing the test of Yahweh observing you in a leadership structure. That is always a part of this life, it's probably the most important thing you have to do. Because what's coming is a leadership structure. And the most important thing you can do is learn how to function correctly as a person in the middle. Figure out who you're supposed to provide for and who is supposed to be providing for you, and how do you treat each group correctly. That's really what it comes down to. And I've had to say to people on the phone, but. If you don't agree, stop fighting with them. But they don't, but they this, but they that. So don't go. Leave peacefully. But you're not honoring. But they're wrong. It doesn't change the fact that you still have to show honor. Okay? It doesn't change. King Saul was trying to kill David. He was acting incredibly shamefully. David recognized that he still had to honor him as king. But what did he do? He left to get away from the danger. Okay, that honor and shame thing is critical. All right, because if David didn't have in his mind every right to just take Saul out, he already knew he was anointed. He'd already been anointed. The oil had already been poured over his head. And he said, not my job to take Saul out. I didn't put him there. Until he's taken out, he's king. Now, he did what you could also do. So until the leadership is taken out of the place you're going, if that leadership's wrong, you have a choice. Be honoring and respectful of that leadership. That doesn't mean you have to do everything they say. Just be respectful, be honoring, just like you would be with your parents. On the other hand, you could do like David. You could leave. You don't have to stay under that. Okay, but it's so important that we understand that this, that I started explaining to you, is what brings us that well done, good and trustworthy. You've done the honorable stuff. You're deserving of honor. You're deserving of esteem because you've shown and honored me and given me esteem. That's what the Father is saying. And we're going to see that play out as we get further into John and some of the other places in the Brit, how this all plays out with Yeshua. And Yeshua mentions this all the time about this idea of receiving and giving honor. Okay? And so I got an opportunity with Tricia now just to demonstrate that. I was supposed to receive that. But she also received it. I have honored and respected and shown her that in bestowing down to her by creating that space where she could grow, feel safe, and all these other things. Because that was a desire she had expressed, and I honored that, and I helped provide for that. And then the honor goes this way, and then I can send it further up. And I know she does also, but it's a proper flow. Okay? And because it was done publicly, it may, I'll think about that for a second, may not, but it may actually affect other people who've had certain opinions about me, hearing her going, well, that's not what I thought about him. I heard he was unsafe. I heard he was this. I heard he was that. But now you just heard something different. So what are you going to do with that mess? Maybe you need to find out for yourself instead of just listening to people. Just one of those things. Okay, next. All right, Shira.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. I'm so touched by this. And I'm realizing, I think as many of us are, with this series, you are really introducing a paradigm shift for us, almost as radical as coming out of Christianity. Because it's not, we just haven't lived this. We're not taught this in Christianity. We often would just make jokes about the Almighty and not even think how disrespectful we were being. And so I want to just respect you by saying one of the things that is so wonderful to me and shows me the loving nature of Elohim is that you have been given this amazing sense of humor. And, it's a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine to go down, but it really does. It's a wonderful gift that you have, and I really appreciated that, and I hope, sometimes I pick up the mic and I kind of joke with you a little bit, and
That's
I hope
okay.
you've never taken that as disrespect.
No.
It's just my total, and I think all of us have this total enjoyment of you as a person. You're not just an authority figure who, dispenses the wisdom of Elohim. You are a wonderful person and just so caring and delightful, and you back up all the things that you preach in your relationships, even the fact that you are so candid about your shortcomings and the areas where you need to grow, and that helps. We have the humor, we have your candor and humility in sharing that.
Appreciate that.
I just really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I was impressed with something as you were speaking, and that was, pardon me, this sounds really strange, but all I could think of is how you taught us how it's not respectful to try to pray when you're in the bathroom. And that you're addressing the Almighty, and truthfully, living alone and being older, I am in that room frequently. And sometimes I have this flow going with him, and I have to remember, okay, I'm just going here, and when I come out, I can talk to him. But that has helped me to realize that just in my everyday life, just around the house, just whatever, I need so desperately to continue to work on and develop that private honoring of Yahweh.
Amen.
That time of getting up and I got a zillion things to do, and they're all great. They all have to do with ministry and calling and this and that, but not stopping to listen, to hear,
Amen.
to prepare my heart for, because every day brings something I didn't plan on, and that can be a real boo for
You
me.
too? I thought I was the only one.
Yeah, but you're a red, I'm a blue. This is really hard.
That is hard.
But
I look forward to them, so.
yeah, I just kept thinking, it begins just between us and him. That's the way I really feel.
Amen. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. I think I need to say something just for clarification, and I'm going to say there's two pieces to this, okay? One has to do with you understanding me, and the other is understanding you, okay? So if I have not come up to you about anything that you've done that you think might have been felt a certain way by me, I probably don't even remember that it happened. I have no idea what you did, okay? But that doesn't mean the second part of it that you don't still need to apologize because you know what you did. And so if it's something that you're aware of, but just want you to realize that I don't always know how to respond when you apologize to me, and people do on a regular enough basis because I don't almost ever even know what you're talking about and I release stuff so quickly, I won't remember it. So unless I thought it was important enough, and if I did, I will have come to you. So if you're thinking of something that you need to apologize for and I have not addressed it with you, realize I probably don't even know what you're talking about, which is okay. You know. So remember, there's two parts to this, okay? Because some of you are worried that you offended me. If you did, I would have said something, okay? So that's part of it. So you don't have to own that part. You don't have to worry about what I'm thinking, but you could recognize that. You say, but what I did was offensive and I shouldn't have done it. I need to apologize. So you see the two parts? But I want you to release that first part, which is any worry, any negative, fearful, or worried emotion or concern, because if there was, I would have addressed it, okay? Just think that might help some people who might think, I'm afraid to talk to Rabbi because, what I did the other day, he's probably so mad. I probably don't even know what you did, okay? Not because I'm oblivious, just because it takes a lot to really, irritate me on that kind of a level or anything. Or for me to even, I'm in a flow, we're doing Bible study, whatever it is. If I thought you were way out of line, believe me, I'll say something. All right, so hopefully did that help anything for everybody? Okay, because I know that this happens a lot where people come up to me to apologize, and I don't even know what to say because I don't know what they're talking about. I can't remember what it was. I can't even grab onto, I have no idea what you did, okay? Zero. And so, all right? And so but that happens like 90% of the time when people come up to me. But you need to know that, okay? And that's probably because I have zero blue and almost all red. I just don't hold on to any of that stuff, okay? So the two things. One is I probably am not feeling whatever you think I'm feeling, unless I've come up to you to tell you. The other is you still probably need to address it because you need to, okay? So hopefully that clarification helps, okay? You still need to do it because you need to do it. If you never did it, I would never even know because I don't even pay enough attention to that. Okay, who's next? Okay, coming in the back here, Rabbi Tom. And Rabbi Tom, I need to apologize to you.
Why?
Because I didn't come up to you and give you a hug yet today.
You can give me two today.
Okay. I got here late and I walked past you a few times. I kept thinking, I got to give him a hug, so my apologies.
I'll return it with 3.
There you go.
I have what might be a dumb question. I don't know.
Okay.
You mentioned the third element. Could that be understood in any way as kavanah, intent?
Of what?
Intent, kavanah.
Yes, exactly that. Okay, it's the driver behind. Okay, so the kavanah, the intent is exactly it. Okay? So it's not a dumb question. That's just another way of labeling it with some clarity. Okay, you have the mechanics of it. You could do it with a certain attitude and everything else, but why are you doing it? What's the driver? That's the completeness. Okay? I'm sure we can take this into other dimensional, like other levels of it, more elements, but really that would be the 3 basic things that I would think. Okay, Nate.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
Just wanted to run this by you to see if I'm thinking correctly here. Talking about honor and shame in chapter 2, when Yeshua says, draw some out now and take it to the master of the feast. And then later on he says, then the master of the feast takes it to the bridegroom. So in that retrospect, Yeshua is honoring the master of the feast because he's there, but he's also honoring the groom at the feast because he didn't make it evident it was him that changed the
That is so true. See, more elements to that, absolutely. Look, he didn't go, all right, I fixed it, it's all wine now, everybody should be happy, and this is good stuff, or whatever. He said, here, take this, bring it here, and then bring it there, and everybody's doing things in the right alignment. Okay? Same thing he does with the lepers. He says, go show yourself to the priest. It's not just because it's the law, but it's honoring the Father's way of doing things. He didn't just say, oh, you're healed, so you don't need to go do anything. I've already healed you. I know you're healed. So what's the priest going to say? You're not healed? I healed you. But you need to go do the process. Okay? All right, so that by the way, that kind of connects more to what he's talking about even than just saying that it has to do with honoring. It's about, if there's a process, the process is that before this wine goes to guests, it goes through this process. Okay? And of course, now the groom is going to sit there going, I don't know how that happened, that's great. Because he's getting honor and excitement. Hey, he's getting all these accolades and he doesn't even know what, he's drunk anyway. He's like, it's all good stuff. What are you talking about? All right, who's next? Okay, Yaakov.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I was trying to take notes, but I couldn't write that fast. The three elements of following and loving Yahweh is the law, having the heart with the mechanics, and using that with righteous, true reasoning in every aspect of my life. Is there something I missed here that I need to take note of?
No, I mean, that's not exactly how I worded it, but it's essentially the right point, okay? You got to do the mechanics. You got to do them as fully intended, okay, when you're doing the mechanics, and you're doing it with the fruit of the Spirit. But the driver, the why you're doing it, was that third element, okay? Okay? Why are we doing these things? Out of fear? Because you think he's going to kill us? That's not a good driver. We're doing it because we want to please him? Doing what's well-pleasing in his sight? Bringing him glory and honor? That's a driver, okay? That was a missing piece for a lot of those guys in the desert, okay? They just didn't have the right driver. Okay. Who's next? Maureen?
I was thinking about what you was talking about, honor. And something that sort of perplexed me through the years was the book of Revelations talks about he gives us a crown. I think it's the crown of life. Is that right? And then we place the crown at his feet. And I was just thinking, who is man that he would even esteem us to give us a crown? But then we rightfully return it to the one who deserves that esteem. That's what I was thinking about when you were talking.
Amen. Amen. Now, I don't remember those verses in Revelation specifically, like in the full context of where they are, but, it could be that we're talking about he gives you a crown of life, but you're laying your self-sovereign crown at his feet. Okay? Now, again, I could be wrong in that because I don't remember the context of where those verses are, but that's the first thought that came to my mind is that you got to lay your crown at his feet, and then he gives you the crown of life. Endure and receive the crown of life. It's a good name for a teaching. Okay. Who's next?
Okay, from Shauna. It says, are you able to give a practical example of the honor flow in the family structure? And then second question was, Jewish weddings lasted 7 days. Did Jewish weddings last 7 days, so they were celebrated on Shabbat?
Well, I mean, it went over, but people stopped on Shabbat doing Shabbat. They only made sure to do Shabbat stuff. Okay, Shabbat, if you understand Jewish culture, if you've ever been in any Jewish type of things, whatever happens that falls on a Shabbat, Shabbat always overrides everything. Even holy days, Shabbat always overrides. So if there's a holy day that falls on a Shabbat, there are certain Shabbat things that must be done on that holy day because it's Shabbat. So if you look at a Siddur and you're looking at, the instructions for one of the holy days, there'll be some things we see, and on Shabbat you add this, and on Shabbat you add that, because Shabbat must always be honored. Okay? So yes, the wedding would go a long time, but yes, also Shabbat would never be diminished. Okay. As far as the family structure question, I don't know what really more I could say than what I've already said. Children need to honor parents. Parents need to be teaching children to be honorable and bestowing esteem on them when they are doing what is honorable, and teaching that whole flow of transfer of esteem and honor. As far as the husband and the wife, we've talked about this a little bit, and we'll probably do some more for sure when we do some of the teachings at Sukkot as far as roles of men and women and that kind of thing. But, it's a complex thing when you're dealing with whether or not both are Torah observant, covenanted people, or only one is. Then it becomes more complex. But there must always be an honoring of the relationship positions. So when people call me, wives especially, if a wife calls me and she's married to an uncovenanted husband, she needs to know, and I make sure she knows, that I cannot give her any counsel that usurps his position. But you're my covering. Well, I can give you guidance. I'm your rabbi. That doesn't make me your covering. I cover the uncovered. I don't cover the already covered, but I don't like my covering. And so there are questions that will come up where I say, look, that's your relationship with him. You could decide to divorce him. You could decide to do this. You could decide to do that. You could do whatever you want. You could do everything he says or nothing he says. That's your relationship with him. I can't be the one that gave you permission or instruction to do anything that goes against your husband. However, I can tell you that you need to figure out how to balance if your husband's trying to get you to do something that goes against the father. How do you handle that? And we can have a counsel session that helps you figure that out. Okay? But the vertical structure of the family is the structure. The father, wife, husband, wife, children. Okay? All right, next.
All right, I'll skip over here because this kind of leads into another question. Leanne.
Hold on. I thought of another thought. Sorry. And for all you husbands out there, this whole thing only works if you get under somebody too. If you're not under somebody, the whole thing still goes sideways. You need to be covered too. You need to come under a leader or a teacher or somebody so that you can have somebody to tell you, hey, you're going off to the left or the right. If you don't have anybody that you're accountable to that can correct you, then even though you're the head of that group is in danger. Your family's in danger. You need that covering. All right, next.
Okay, from Leanne, it says, is doing the request of a parent always the way to honor them once one is married and under the authority of a spouse? What if the request of the parents will cause harm because the parents is, example, vengeful?
Okay. There's so much I need to address about our... I don't want to offend the person who wrote that question, because this is a problem for almost all of you. Your psychological, emotional dysfunction has you not able to hear what I say, or has you not understand and filter it into something I didn't say. Nowhere did I say anything about you needing to do what your parents request you to do. As a matter of fact, I told you you don't need to. But you're not able to receive that, so I'm not picking on you. But you all need to know that we all have those areas that we just cannot receive information because it's swimming upstream against an emotionally, negatively charged, bound blockage. You're married. You no longer live in your parents' house. You do not have to do anything they say. You just have to make sure that you're being honoring of them as your parents. So you can say to them, Mom, I appreciate you want me to do this or that, or don't do this or that, whatever it is that mom's requesting or dad's requesting, but be respectful and honoring in how you, don't blow up and call them names and curse at them and do all these other things. You have to be honorable in how you treat them, but you are no longer under their authority. It's not an authority thing anymore. You're honoring them because they brought you into this world. It's your mother, it's your father. That's what brings them the honor. The obedience is now to your husband and to the father and the son. Your obedience is not to your parents. Once you hit that age of majority and moved out, your obedience is no longer to them. You owe them honor, though. Or at least you owe them not to shame them. I know that may sound like the same thing, but it's not. Because sometimes they're completely aberrant in their behavior. They're, like you said, they're going to do things that could harm the rest of your family. And so you can keep them at arm's length without shaming them in a public way. In other words, you don't call your siblings, you don't talk to them bad about it. You don't talk bad about your parents to people. You don't cause them shame, even if they're acting shameful. So you're not honoring them per se, because you might have cut them off because that's the only thing you can do to protect your family, but you do it in a respectful way. You say, Mom, if you're going to keep doing that, or Dad, then I'm sorry, but we are not going to be coming to your house, and you're not going to have access to the kids or whatever. I've had people have the problem where every time they put the kids at the grandparents' house, their kids go to their parents' house. What are they doing? They're putting pork in front of them, putting shellfish in front of them, they're putting whatever. They're not honoring and respecting you as the parent to them. So you can cut them off, but do it in a respectful manner. I know that you're their grandparents. I know you love them, but because you cannot respect my authority with my kids, just like you'd want others to respect your authority with your kids, this is not going to work until you get that figured out. But you have to be polite and respectful and not treating them in a way that's not honoring. Honoring doesn't mean, in this particular case, it doesn't always mean obedience. Okay? So hopefully, and again, I wasn't picking on the person who wrote this. This is a problem. I counsel people every day. I run into this. They'll quote back things incorrectly. They'll misunderstand things because there's an emotional charged blockage. An emotionally charged blockage that is hampering your ability to receive the information correctly. But you said this. I didn't say anything about accepting whatever it is they want you to accept. You don't have to accept anything, but you have to do it in an honoring and respectful manner. Okay? And that's the important piece of it. Okay, next. And we're going to deal a lot more with the fact that all of our handicapping in our brains and our emotions and all that stuff, and it's just the toxic attic. We're going to clean it out. We'll give Zig Ziglar a little play here and say we'll get a checkup from the neck up. Okay. There's one for Yazoo City. Okay, go ahead.
From Aubrey Allen, says, was Miriam also trying to prevent shame being brought upon the bridegroom because they ran out of wine? Would running out of wine at a wedding feast be shameful? Probably, and that probably wasn't, she probably had that thought in there. There might not have been, she said, look, they ran out of wine. And you can fix this, so why don't you fix it for them? I mean, there's a lot of things going on there. It's a very short little piece. It's like only a few verses, but there's a lot going on here. And so I'm glad that Nate picked out something, you just picked out something. So people are picking out little pieces that are additions to what was going on here. That is likely that she realized that I'm doing this to help protect the honor. Now, of course, Yeshua said, my mom, it's not time yet. And look, he was in the human flesh, and he knew that once that happened, life as he knew it was going to change. Now, he probably didn't know necessarily what was going to be the catalyst. And Mom was like, nope, you're 30 years old. Time to get moving. Let's go. You've been going around this mountain long enough. I'm sorry, that was Moses that was told that, but okay. But kind of turnabout because Moses was told that by Yeshua. So kind of turnabout kind of works the other way. All right? So Mom was like, no, it's time. Go ahead. All right, from Mercy, says, for clarity, please. So do we only give praise, honor, and glory to the Father and not the Son in prayer, songs, etc.? Then where does that place Yeshua in praise, prayer, and songs?
Okay, so when I read the Psalms, when I read all of the New Testament scriptures, This is a Christianized thing that you're coming with. Christianity has done everything to focus on singing to, singing about, focusing on. It's all about there's even a book I think called It's All About Jesus. And that whole ministry is that they only want to focus on the Son the way they see the Son. Okay? So when you sing about Yeshua, nothing wrong with that. We appreciate and are giving him honor and esteem because remember, the Father tells us that we can give the Son esteem. I said the Son didn't ask for it. Okay? And so we are honoring and esteeming the Son. Just like I receive some honor and esteem and I could pass that along up the chain, we honor and esteem the Son. That's fine. Just remember that as you're doing this, that you're trying to not fall into the trap of the Christian mindset of it only being all about the Son. Okay, the Son said, my job was to point you towards and show you the Father. He says, I came to show you the Father. And then he said, job done, focus on him. Okay? So we do the best we can with that. We have lots of songs that mention Yeshua, and we sing them, and we appreciate where he is in the mix. And as we sing, it's also like reminding ourselves that he's Mashiach, that he's coming as King of Kings, Master of Masters, that he's the Lion of Judah. Okay? And so we know, and we can put those things in there in the songs, but we're not focusing all of that, thinking that that's where it ends. We're appreciating and honoring his role in the scheme of things, as I was honored earlier from my role in the scheme of things. There was no dishonoring the Son or the Father in what she did, right? So we're not going to dishonor the Father if we treat Yeshua correctly, as long as we're understanding his role in relation to that they're still higher up. And appreciating that the Father gave us the Son. Just appreciating like that the Father and the Son put leaders in place. We appreciate that they put Moses in there and gave us the law. We appreciate all these different things along the way. We appreciate that Yeshua gave us the apostles. And he gave us at least a few of them that wanted to actually write down something. Because most of them wrote nothing. I mean, the majority of them, we don't know anything about what they thought about anything. There are no less students than the 3 or 4 that were just vocal. Okay? And go stump all your friends and ask them what number Apostle Luke was. Okay, because he wasn't. Okay, so, all right. And so there's, because people say, I say, name the 12 apostles. They start off with the 4 Gospels. I said, okay, you already failed. Okay? Because they figure, I got 4 right away. Nope. But there's a lot of them that never wrote anything. Or at least if they wrote it, we never got it down, passed down. We never saw it. So we are appreciative that we have those that did write something or had writers for them. Okay? Because we know that some of them didn't write for themselves, but had a scribe to write for them. See, that's just putting things, hopefully that helps to some degree. Okay? So I guess a lot of it has to do with where is Yeshua in your heart and in your mind in the relationship then to the Father going further up? Have you made that shift out of the Christian way of thinking into the Torah-based, scripture-based way of thinking? So he doesn't lose anything, by the way. He just gets repositioned correctly. In which case you should actually give him even more, because then now that you know exactly who and what he is and should be in your life. All right, next.
From Olivia and Janet Hoffman, chapter 1, verse 16 and 17. It says, Rabbi, when it says we all receive favor upon favor since we are to bring honor to the Father by following Yeshua, the walk and live in Torah, as we do, so we receive favor through Yeshua?
Okay, so look, John is teaching us in parables and metaphors, and he's talking about him being the light and that he was the life and all that kind of stuff. Understand that Yeshua is all of those things. So it's through Yeshua, it's through the light, through the life, through the way, through the truth, through the word that we receive favor upon favor. The completeness that is Yeshua, he's all those things. Okay? but you're limiting your thought. Okay, and I taught you better than that. I taught you guys that when you hear the name Yeshua, or when you think about Yeshua, think of him as the way, the truth, the life, light, Torah, the word, all the things that he is. Okay? Messiah, the Son of the Father, all these things. All right, next.
From McTiggart family, it says, because Yeshua was also human, is it possible that Yeshua was anxious about his first miracle? Was this his first miracle or just the first recorded? And it says, was Mary all aware that he could do such things?
All right, first of all, Miriam had no doubt that what he could do, because she just said to him, to the guy, said, whatever he tells you to do, it's going to fix the problem. And she may not have known how he was going to fix it, but she had no doubt that he was going to fix it. And I don't think he had any anxiety at all about fixing it. I think his only thought may have been about the timing, because life as he knew it would change once he started doing these things. Okay, and he was not necessarily, I don't want to say he wasn't ready, but he said to her, my time isn't yet, which could be a phrase for, like, I'm not ready yet. I mean, I'm still doing what I'm doing, and I'm your son, and I'm doing these things, and I've started teaching these guys. And she's like, no, it's time, okay? But I don't think he had any anxiousness about his first miracle, because this is the first recorded one anyway, okay? I don't think that's an issue at all. I think it had more to do with, once I open this door, it doesn't close, okay? All right, next. See, Rob's confused because sometimes I'm looking at him as if he should respond that answered his question when it wasn't his question. So he's waiting for me to just say next. And I'm looking at him like, did I answer your question? And you're like, it wasn't my question. Okay.
From Olivia and Janet Hoffman again. It says, Rabbi, sometimes people feel shame even when not at fault. For instance, some childhood abuses. Says, can you speak about these situations? Is there something called false shame/guilt?
I don't know that we have time to try to unravel all that. Let me see if I can give you a sort of a simple answer. Shame is something that you can either feel because you recognize what you've done, or it can be in some manner from outside imposed on you. So you were made to feel ashamed even if you didn't necessarily do anything to be ashamed. Okay? Remember, these are transferable things. You can transfer honor, you could also transfer shame. And so if those around you, when something happens, try to convince you that it was your fault, you may actually start to believe them. And if the thing that was your fault was shameful, then you'll think that you should be ashamed because you did something shameful. It has to do with your receiving the outside push of the information from outside, the imposing of that information on you. It's like the idea of my telling you nothing is personal. And I could walk up to you and kick you and still be telling you nothing is personal. You're like, but you just kicked me. It's very personal. Not really. You could choose to receive it any way you want. You could have received it as playful. You could have received it as, boy, that guy's messed up and he's a jerk or something. But you didn't have to take it on, I did something, I deserved it. It's not personal. Because if you have the first thought, what did I do to deserve that? That's a dangerous path. Now, it's not a wrong question, because you may want to ask the question saying, I wonder if I deserve that in some way. But be careful, because you may also allow others, this is the dumb thing that we do. We get on the phone and we go and talk to our friends and go, this thing happened. Do you think I deserved that? Did I bring that upon myself? Did I do anything to deserve that? We ask those kind of questions, and then here's worse, we listen to what they say. And let them decide whether or not we should have been offended, we should have been ashamed, we were at fault, and they speak that junk right in there, and then you're off to the races feeling wrongly about something or owning something you shouldn't have owned. That was my real lousy quick answer to that question, because that's deep stuff to really deal with a psycho-emotional problem, because we go through lots of traumas, and the people around us will often make us feel like we brought those traumas on ourselves, or we deserved it, or we earned it in some way, and so we start to own that shame, okay? And then we have a hard time, of course, releasing anything because we figure, well, how can I release it? I deserved it. I earned it. It's mine. Somehow I'm the type of person that should have been treated that way. And then how do you get past that? Well, you got to first stop letting other people determine these things for you. Okay? Next. Because we could talk like for 2 hours just on that one.
All right, from Jesus Fierro, says, "Can you please clarify how you said Yeshua didn't die for our sin, but in the 2 Corinthians 5:21 and Galatians 1:4 says otherwise? Can you please explain?"
Okay, so sin has lots of aspects to it, right? So he died for particular aspects of the sin. And I did say that earlier, by the way. But again, it sounds like you're coming from more of that Christianized sort of place, which is fine. Everybody starts off there. So you didn't really receive. Yes, he died for certain aspects of what your sin created a problem for you about that forgiveness through repentance won't do. Because we're told in the Old Testament that the temple and its services forgave sin. You had to go do offerings because of sin, and that it would forgive your sin. There are verses that say that absolutely point blank simple. But there's things about your sin, like the death penalty ultimately, that those things did not address, or the shame that those things did not address. And so what I tried to tell you earlier is that what he did was addressing those things. So he didn't die for your sin from the level that we were taught through Christianity, the idea of just, that somehow it forgave sin and then all this. No, it forgave a level of sin that you're not, the level or an aspect of the sin that the other things couldn't do. The sacrificial system couldn't forgive or wipe out the shame. It couldn't wipe out your need for the death penalty. It did, though, give you the opportunity to have reconciliation in your relationship with your Creator. So you're reconciled, so you can still interact with Him. Because remember, sin separates you from Him. Did that explain it for most of you guys here? Because Rob's not going to help me with his face and do any of this stuff. Okay. Okay? All of a sudden, he just turned into a bobblehead doll. He's doing this. Okay. All right, so I also think it's kind of funny, and I don't pick on you at all, but it came from Jesus, so. He was asking me that question. I'm just having fun with you. Hopefully he did not get offended when I said that. Good, these are good questions, and they are legitimate struggles, and I mock nobody. I mean not to shame anybody. And so when you ask questions like this, I'm helping everybody who's struggling with these things, that we really do struggle to understand why Yeshua did what he did. And I tried to explain it through this. There's a transference of two things, shame and death penalty. He took those two things away from you, potentially. Now, of course, if you don't covenant and walk in it and teshuvah and all the things you need to do, that availability was of no use to you. You're still walking in shame, and you're still going to die, ultimately. Okay? All right, next.
Yeah, his sign-on handle was Ace Taco. So.
I like that better.
All right, from Michelle Perez, it says, I would like to know that although I'm disabled and not able to go out and teach or preach the gospel, is my following Yahweh, Torah, and Messiah enough? She says, I'm at home with oxygen and a tracheostomy. I think she's asking about the honor.
I understand what she's saying. Okay, so first of all that stuff that you can't do, you were never supposed to do. That's all Christian junk. Okay? I mean, it came out of Christianity. You were never required to go out and preach anything. That's Matthew 28, and it was given to, in quote unquote, the Great Commission, to the guys who were trained to do it. Okay? It was never your job. Christianity made it everybody's job. Okay? It is absolutely enough to honor your Father by doing what you can do. So you just do what you can do with the right heart, the right head, the right motivation, in the fullness of how he intended it, and it will be just fine. Okay? But I'm just going to release you of any frustration with things that you never had to do. It was never your job. For all of you, just better listen, please. It is not your job to go out and preach this in anybody's face or to anybody. That's not your job. Your job is to be a light, to walk it. That's your job. Now, it's my job to preach it. And there's only a few people he calls and puts in a position called teacher, preacher, whatever, and it's their job. And by the way, I don't, if you notice, do it on Facebook. I just post my teachings. So I don't get in discussions and start preaching at people. I don't do it when I meet them on the street. I don't do it in line at the store. A lot of you try to do these things. I do none of that. I do it in front of a camera on a recording and make it available. I don't preach to anybody, okay? All right, next.
Okay, from Maria Soul, says question, in a work setting, how do we honor managers/supervisors who show favoritism and is not following the rules established by the company?
Sorry, I'm just thinking about how much work I actually have to do in the body in general here. All right, listen. Good question, only because it exhibits another problem in our human, emotional, psychological makeup, okay? Your problem is not honoring, your problem is judging. Take off the robes and the wig or whatever else a judge might wear and get out of that seat. It is none of your business and not your problem if the person who's in charge in your department is a criminal or is despicable or is preferential in treatment to other people. That's not your problem. Your problem is that when you are dealing with them, that you're not trying to shame them in public and that you're acting in a respectful, honoring way when they treat you. Everything else, the father will deal with the other. There's always somebody higher in the company than that guy unless it's the owner. Somebody eventually will figure it out, I promise you, and that will either, if they don't, the company will end up suffering anyway. The whole thing will start to fall apart, okay? But if you are working in corporate America, you will absolutely at some point work for that person. Male or female, doesn't matter. You will work at some point for that person, the person that is honoring or elevating people who are not doing their job and showing preferential treatment and doing things wrong and finding the shortcuts or whatever. You will work for that person. If you are now, you already know what I'm talking about. If you're not, don't worry, someday you will. Because they're everywhere in corporate America, in every business. But you must maintain your level of respectful behavior. They walk in there and do whatever they do. Look, if you cannot be respectful, then leave, go get a different job. Why do you stay if it's such a, if the people really are doing that kind of stuff, why do you want to stay there? Go find another job. You do understand that we live in a country where it really is not that hard to find work. It's maybe a little hard to find the work you want, because you've got all of your, I don't like and I want and I don't like. But you can find other work. You already don't like what you're doing. So go find something that you don't like less than the one you already don't like a lot. Okay? At the very minimum, you won't like it, but it won't be quite as strong a feeling as the one you really don't like right now. Or maybe you come to realize, you know what? I don't like this, but it could be a lot worse. As long as nobody's expecting you to do something illegal or that goes against the rules in a way that you can't deal with, if they do, go find another job. Okay? If you have an opportunity in a right protocol according to the company to talk to someone above the person who's your boss, you're welcome to do that. You will probably lose your job, but you're welcome to do that. So you need to be prepared for that. Because if you have a good person above the person, they would want to know. Okay? I'll give you an example. Many of you have eaten at restaurants with me. Sometimes I get a reputation as a complainer. I'm not a complainer. I call managers over. Any of you that have ever sat with me when I've done that, what have I always said to the managers? I said, look, I'm a manager of people too, If I was in your position, I would want to know that this is what's going on with my employees. So I just brought you over to let you know that this is the negative experience my group and I are having right now. You've heard me say this, okay? Some of you have been with me and you know. Because that to me is honoring and respecting the authority in the building. I'm not trying to get the employee in trouble. I'm trying to make sure the person who's really this is reflecting on, the manager of the restaurant, Mr. Manager, you need to know that your employees are not reflecting well on you right now. And they're going to hurt your business, and then the owner is not going to be happy with your numbers dropping. Okay? As opposed to saying, I want to tell you what kind of an awful, terrible, blah, 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 blah. I don't start off that way at all. I go right to, I want you to know, because I think you probably would want to know. I'm a customer. I'm not having a very good experience tonight. I'd want to know if anybody has a bad experience with any of my employees, and we have a few employees that work for MTY. If someone has a bad experience, I'd want to know. And I think the employees would want to know too, so that if they are actually the cause of a real bad experience, and in other words, an actual one instead of a perceived one, because that happens too, okay, they would want to be corrected so that they don't cause somebody to have a negative experience. Okay? So hopefully that was the long-winded way of kind of helping you with the way. Now look, that was showing honor to the proper authority. Now, at the same time, I was telling that authority, this thing that I'm in the middle of here, that I'm participating in, isn't working the way I'm sure you don't want it to work this way. Whatever it was, waiting 2 hours for food, or it comes out cold, or whatever it is, right? And some of you are like, well, I don't like to say anything because they're going to spit in my food. Well, they probably will. At least I know a few people that are absolutely convinced that that's what's happening. I don't know what restaurants they worked at where they actually did that, but apparently this is a real fear. Okay, so that's why maybe what you do is say it when the meal is over, and just to let the manager know, okay? Then you're not worried about spitting in the food. Okay, all right? Next question.
From Jeffrey Pinero, says, Rabbi, question, doesn't honor properly received and properly given contain demonstrative humility? Wouldn't humility be key to both honor and shame?
Absolutely. I mean, we're just starting the beginning of this, but absolutely. Humility is a huge part of it. Okay, anybody else? Because remember, if you're seeking the honor for anything other than a humble position, now we're looking at ego and pride. We're not looking at honor being sought. Because honor is something to be sought after. But you have to understand what it is you're seeking. You're seeking to be receiving the honor because you are a humble servant. Right? Remember, the whole point of our testing is Deuteronomy 8:2 is to be humbled, to find ourselves to develop our humility, and then to demonstrate our willingness to keep his commandments or not. And that's honoring to him. But we do that because it will bring us honor. Okay? And honor doesn't mean accolades and fame and glory, although it can have that mixed in there with it, but it's the idea of, I want to hear him say, I'm proud of you. Good job. The kind of thing that a child generally wants from a parent. They want the parent to come over and look at what they did. Because they bring stuff over to the parent and say, look at what I did. I drew this picture. And you don't even know what it is they're looking at. Look, it's the dog. Okay, if you say so. But you don't do that. You say, oh, it's wonderful. Thank you. It's beautiful, because they put in an effort seeking honor, and you're going to give them. So they know what it feels like to have it bestowed on them. And how do you honor it? You take it and you put it right in the most public place on the refrigerator so that they see how happy and pleased and proud you are of it. My daughter used to really love the idea that when she would come into my office, everything she ever made for me was still hanging. Well, I haven't moved it into my new office yet, but it was hanging on my wall. Stuff she had made when she was teeny, it was on my wall in that office, and the newer stuff, but it was just, whenever she walked in, she always realized how much Daddy honors her, that bestowal, okay? So that's a perfect example. I like that example, the idea of like the child coming to you, and then you put it in a place of honor. You put it on your desk, you put it on the refrigerator, you hang it up And so it's not about them being all egomaniac about it. It's about them saying, I pleased that person. I did what was pleasing to them, and so they gave me an honor because they were pleased. I did this for you, Mommy. I did this for you, Daddy. Oh, it's awesome. Why is it awesome? Because she did it for me. Doesn't matter if I have no idea what it is. But she did it for me, right? And so that's the whole point with our Father in heaven, is that we do it for him. We're seeking what is well-pleasing to him. And that's what brings us honor. It is not pleasing to him if we become raging egomaniacs. We need to develop humility. All right, next. Anything else? Because it's after 5. We should be wrapping it up.
I just got one comment there from me is I'm glad we're going through this because I think somebody kind of hit on it is honor and shame has been lost through generations of, long time ago it was, it wasn't even a question about honor or shame. We've lost it because it's been so subjective to society, and so now I love how you're going to bring it back into the objective is that what he says is honor, and that's what we should be striving for.
Okay, I'm going to just take, if it's okay, what you just said, I'm just going to repackage it. It's not that we lost what's honoring and what's shameful. That changes by society, it changes by culture. What we've lost is caring about it, okay? We do no longer does anybody care, generally, if something is shaming or honoring. And certainly the shaming part for sure, they don't care. You should be ashamed of yourself, and they laugh at you. Well, I don't care, I'm not ashamed of myself, because that's the line that somebody might say to you, well, you should be ashamed of yourself, or shame on you, and the person will just laugh at you, because they're not thinking about those things. People still do seek for honor. They look for glory and attention, but they're looking at it from all the wrong reasons. So I'm going to agree with what Rob is saying, but my point is, understand culturally, through generations, what brings honor and shame may change, but the bigger thing is that I think we no longer care. And that's what we're trying to realize, is that we're supposed to care about whether or not what we're doing is bringing honor or shame. That's the bigger disconnect, okay? Because you can go and look at different cultures and what might be hugely shameful and what brings honor, you might be going, really? I remember studying ancient Japanese culture. And if somebody had brought a tremendous amount of shame on the family, they would actually do this knife thing and kill themselves, and then somebody who had the honored position would be the one to cut your head off before you made a face that would bring even more shame to you. And this was restoring honor. And you might think, that's barbaric. No, it was their culture. Cultures change. But I'm just saying, so don't think that it's just that we have to understand what's honoring, what's shaming. That changes. We're looking at the biblical version of it. Cultures have their own opinions. Societies have their own opinions. Problem is, mostly today, nobody is even thinking about it. That's the bigger problem, okay? All right, amen. All right, that's going to wrap it up. I think that covers it for the live stream.